Oh my God, look behind us, there's the big tusker. The big tusker is right behind us. Oh my God, just...
Mother of noises.
South Africa is home to some of the strongest animals on the planet, species that not only have remarkable power, but strength enough to be a match for any predator. Within their own environments, all animals across the world have strength, whether it be brute force or specialist within a species. But when it comes to sheer power, from the great to the small, the animals in South Africa are amongst the strongest in the world. The African elephant, the largest living land mammal on the planet. Fully grown males weigh in at around 7 tons, and when dealing in brute force, they are the strongest animals alive. With over 100,000 different muscles in their trunks alone, they are undeniably a spectacular power on the African plains. They use their tusks as tools to strip bark, dig for food and water, but also as weapons as they battle with rivals. Young bulls form bachelor groups, sparring to assess each other's strength. But breeding is all down to weight, size and power. And when a large bull is in must, they command the herd. So here we've got the large dominant male right here, and up there they're all young bulls, and they all seem to be kicking off because he's come into the area. When a bull is in must, their testosterone levels soar 60 times greater than normal as they prepare to compete for females, and will do whatever it takes to sire the next generation. Calves are born completely dependent on their mothers, drinking up to 12 litres of her milk each day. Other herd members will care for the young, with elephant family bonds being one of the strongest in nature. And this young female will stay with her family group for the rest of her life. Now, both male and female African elephants have tusks, but this is all starting to change, and increasingly they're being born without them, and that's all to do with the pressures from poaching. And that's because animals with large tusks are always targeted, and therefore they're not passing on the big tusk gene to the next generation. So much so that tusk size has halved in the last century. In some areas of South Africa, 98% of female elephant populations are now tuskless, a direct result from human impact. But as elephants evolve to combat poaching, let's hope this may help protect the species. However, here in South Africa, it's not only the large species that have incredible power, it is also the small. Now, dung beetles are fantastic creatures and vital for the ecosystem as they break up the dung of much larger animals and disperse their nutrients all over the plains. There are over 7,000 species of dung beetle found across the world, of which around 800 live in South Africa, and they play a remarkable role in the savannas. By burying themselves in dung, they improve soil quality and are key in seed dispersal. They have an excellent sense of smell, which they use to sniff out their next meal. But they also use dung to bury themselves in the heat of the day, as well as a safe place to lay their eggs. They may look like an average beetle, but when it comes to strength, there is no other match. Despite being roughly a couple of inches in length, on average, dung beetles can roll balls of dung 50 times their own weight, with one species being able to pull a dung ball 1,141 times its own body weight. That's the equivalent of a human pulling 6 double-decker buses full of people. And that not only makes the dung beetle the strongest insect in the world, but compared to body size, the strongest animal on the planet. Which just goes to show, size isn't everything. But when it comes to strength in survival, sometimes it can be down to an individual. South Africa is home to nearly 80% of the world's rhinos. That's by far the largest rhino population anywhere in the world. But it's also the country that's been hit the hardest by poachers. In South Africa alone, over 1,000 rhinos were killed each year between 2013 and 2017, making the country incredibly important for rhino conservation. In 2012, the Kariga Game Reserve suffered a brutal poaching attack. One rhino died that night, another male died 24 days later, but one female survived. Tandy became the first rhino ever to survive a poaching attack. Her story spread around the world and she has become an icon of hope in the fight against poachers.
Poaching can happen even if you have a massively good anti-poaching unit. It can still happen. I don't think poaching of rhinos will ever stop until the last rhino is gone. The value of rhino horn is more than gold, which is ridiculous. Rhino horn is literally keratin, it's the same as your nails and your hair. But Tandy has definitely inspired so many and still is inspiring so many with her massive success story.
Shortly after the horrific attack, she was found to be pregnant, an unbelievable feat given her recent trauma. She has now gone on to have 3 calves, a miracle in itself. Her survival was nothing short of extraordinary and has helped rhino conservation all over the world. Vets and Kariga staff were able to perform pioneering skin grafts, and she grew from strength to strength.
So Tandy's new calf, his name is Mteto, which means justice, and he is not even a month old yet. He is adorable and naughty and feisty little calf. It's a huge success because usually if you hear about poached rhinos, it's always negative. It never ends well. It never ends well. But with Tandy, she's changing that story. If it goes on like it is now, there's going to be no rhinos left in a few years. And we can't go and show our kids like, this is a wild rhino, because there will be none left. And we would be the ones responsible for that because, you know, did we do enough? So.
Last year was the first year in over a decade that South Africa witnessed a small decline in the poaching of rhinos. This shows that stringent efforts being made by anti-poaching units is working. However, there is still much work to be done. But for now, Tandy and her calf have found sanctuary, thanks to the Kariga Game Reserve. Here in the Eastern Cape, we've witnessed some remarkable wildlife, some spectacular behaviours, and had a privileged insight into conservation efforts happening on the ground. It is an area rich in biodiversity. Let's hope it stays that way. South Africa is home to undeniably some of the most magnificent species in the world. But like all living things across the planet, they are surviving in a delicate balance. Our ever-fragile environment is under a monumental threat, one never seen before in the history of the human race, and it is our responsibility to protect it. The actions we now make towards saving the environment have never been more crucial, before we lose what all life on Earth depends on.